I thought I knew every reason my mother died with a peaceful look on her face. I was wrong about one of them. For days after I buried her, a woman I'd called Aunt Rosalind my whole life stood on my porch holding a shoebox my mother had asked her to keep hidden for 27 years. "Your mother made me promise," she said, "that I wouldn't give you this until she was gone." She didn't come inside right away. She just stood there in the rain with the box against her chest like it might try to get away from her, and I understood, before she said another word, that whatever was in it was going to rearrange something in me that I wasn't ready to have rearranged. My name is Naomi Reyes. I'm 31, and until that Thursday, I believed my mother, Corinne, was the most honest person I had ever known. I know how that sounds. Every daughter thinks that. But my mother wasn't honest in the soft way people usually mean it. She was honest in a way that stung. She'd tell you if your haircut didn't suit you. She told me my college boyfriend Marcus had a lying face 3 weeks before I found out he had another girlfriend in Ohio. She never once, in 31 years, softened a hard truth for my comfort. Except, I would learn, for one. She raised me alone in a 2-bedroom house in Millbrook, after my father left when I was 6. The kitchen always smelled like cinnamon, because she baked when she was anxious, though she never told me what she was anxious about. She kept exactly one photograph of him, not displayed, not thrown away, just kept in a drawer, the way you keep a scar you've stopped noticing. When I asked about him, she'd answer in 3 sentences and then ask me something about my own life, so smoothly I never noticed the redirect until years later. There was a chipped blue ceramic bowl in her cupboard that never matched the rest of our dishes. I asked her about it once, when I was maybe 14. She said, "It's old," and changed the subject before I could ask anything else. I never thought about it again until much later than I should have. She died on a Tuesday in March, in her sleep, of a heart condition none of us knew was serious. I got the call at 6:40 in the morning and stood in my kitchen in bare feet, listening to my own pulse like it belonged to someone else. The funeral was small, a handful of coworkers, a few distant relatives, and Rosalind, who cried harder than I did. At the time I thought that was just love. It would turn out to be something closer to guilt. Afterward I did what you do. Folded her sweaters into donation bags and cried into half of them. Found her reading glasses on the nightstand, left open, like she meant to come back for them. Found a grocery list in her handwriting, milk, dish soap, the vitamins I kept telling her to take, and sat on her bedroom floor for 20 minutes over it, because it was so ordinary, and ordinary things are the ones that break you. I told myself grief was going to be the slow work of missing someone I had already fully known. I had no reason to think otherwise. Then Rosalind knocked. I made tea neither of us drank. She sat at my kitchen table and stared at the box for a long time before she finally slid it toward me. "There's a lot about her you don't know, Naomi," she said. "Not because she didn't love you. Because she loved you too much to tell you." Inside, under a faded blue ribbon, was a stack of letters, most still sealed, a small brass key that didn't match any lock I owned, and a photograph of my mother at maybe 22, laughing beside a man I'd never seen in my life. Really laughing. The kind of laugh I'd only caught from her a handful of times, at the far end of a good Christmas Eve joke. In the photo, she looked like someone wearing my mother's face and nothing else of hers. "Who is he?" I asked. "His name was Daniel," Rosalind said. "That's all I can tell you tonight." That was it. She wouldn't say more, not that night, not the man's last name, not why my mother had kept a locked box for almost 3 decades. She left the letters with me and told me to take my time. I didn't sleep. I opened the oldest letter first, dated the year before I was born. Asterisk Corinne, I understand why you asked me to stay away. I don't understand how you can carry this alone. If you ever change your mind, the door is open. D***. I read it 4 times before the words settled into anything I could hold. Over the next week I became someone I didn't recognize, a woman going through her dead mother's financial records at midnight, looking for a name she didn't have yet. I found a small quarterly wire transfer, recurring for over 2 decades, to an account under Daniel Whitfield. Whitfield. My mother's maiden name, a name I'd seen exactly once, in her old high school yearbook, and never once thought to ask about. I sat with that for a while. Then I kept looking. Behind a drawer liner in her closet, folded small, I found a hospital record dated 8 months before I was born. Asterisk baby boy Whitfield. Mother, Corinne Whitfield, asterisk. I read it standing up, and then I sat down on the floor, because my legs made that decision without asking me. A baby. My mother had a baby before she had me. I called Rosalind. My hands weren't entirely steady. Is it true? I said. Is there a child? The pause on the other end went on long enough that I already knew the answer before she gave it. His name is David, she said. Was your mother going to tell you eventually? Yes. Did she run out of time? Also yes. Is he alive? Another pause, shorter this time, but heavier. I think that's something you need to hear from Daniel, not from me. I want to tell you I felt something dramatic in that moment. What I actually felt was quieter and stranger, like the floor had tilted 2 inches to the left and everything in the room was very slightly wrong. I drove to Ashford Falls 3 days later, a town 3 hours north I'd never had a reason to visit. Daniel Whitfield still lived 2 streets from where he'd grown up, 59 years old, running a small hardware store. When I told him who I was, he went very still. She told me she left the letters with a lawyer, he said slowly. For you to find. Not with Rosalind. She never fully trusted Rosalind with anything that mattered, not after what happened between them in '94. I didn't know what happened in '94. Neither, it seemed, did he. I don't know the whole story, he admitted. Just that something broke between them a long time ago and never fully healed. I drove home with a new question sitting where an answer should have been. If my mother didn't trust Rosalind completely, why had Rosalind been the one holding the box? I didn't call her that night. Or the next. I let her calls go to voicemail for 4 days, rereading the letters, looking for anything that didn't line up, replaying the 2 decades of small quarterly deposits, wondering how much of what I'd been told was true and how much was Rosalind's version of the truth. On the 5th day, I finally answered. You've been avoiding me, she said. I've been trying to figure out if I should trust you, I said.
She was quiet for a moment. Then she told me about 1994, the year she'd let something slip at the wrong dinner table, something about my mother's past that got back to my father before he and my mother had even married. My mother never fully forgave her for it. But when Corinne got sick this past year, she called Rosalind anyway. She said I was the only one left who knew her before all this, Rosalind said. Before you. She wanted that person to be the one who handed it over. Not because she trusted me completely. Because I don't know. Because I was there at the start. And she wanted someone who remembered who she used to be. I believed her. Not because the earlier gap in the story disappeared, but because it explained something my mother had said to me once, years before any of this, that I'd never understood until now. The people who hurt you worst, baby, are usually the ones who love you the most and don't know how to show in time. I thought she meant my father. She might have meant Rosalind. She might have meant herself. I still wasn't ready to fully let go of the 4 days I'd spent doubting her. I told her that. She said she understood, and for a while, that was where we left it. Not resolved, exactly, just honest. Daniel had one more thing for me, something he'd been waiting to hand over in person. The brass key. It's for a safety deposit box at First Ashford Bank, he said. Your mother opened it the year David turned 18. I don't know everything that's in it. She never told me.
Inside the box, 3 weeks later, I found a small folder of David's baby pictures my mother had never shown anyone, a savings bond in his name that had matured and never been cashed, and a folder of paperwork for a scholarship fund established at the local college, David's name on it, dated the year after his death. That was the sentence that stopped me. The year after his death. I hadn't known there was a death to have a year after. David, my brother, had died 6 years earlier. A car accident, on a rainy October night, 3 months before I would ever have had the chance to meet him. My mother had found out. She never told anyone but Rosalind, who only knew because she'd seen my mother's face at a stoplight one afternoon and asked what was wrong, and my mother, who never cried in front of anyone, not once in my life that I could remember, told her everything through a car window that hadn't moved in 11 minutes. That was why the letters stopped being opened. That was why the quarterly payments quietly redirected, without explanation, into a scholarship fund instead of a person. She had spent the last 6 years of her life grieving a son I never knew I had, in complete silence, because telling me would have meant saying it out loud twice. That was the piece that broke something open in me. Not the secret itself. The loneliness of carrying it. I finally understood the full shape of what Rosalind had meant that first night on my porch. She wasn't there to reveal a secret. She was there to finish a promise Corinne had made and run out of time to keep herself. The last item in the box was a letter from my mother, unsent, dated 4 months before she died. Before, I now understand, she knew her own heart was failing, though maybe some part of her already suspected. I won't read it to you word for word. Some things are only mine to keep whole. But I'll tell you what it said, in the way that matters. She wasn't sorry for loving David, and she wasn't sorry, even now, for the choice she'd made at 19. She believed it had given him a life she couldn't have. What she was sorry for was every year she let the secret sit between us, a locked room in a house I thought I knew every corner of. She brought up the blue ceramic bowl. I'd broken it once, when I was 11, her own mother's bowl, and hidden the pieces under my bed instead of telling her, terrified of disappointing her. She found it weeks later anyway. Instead of anger, she sat on my bedroom floor and told me, the hiding is always worse than the breaking, baby. Whatever it is. Bring it to me broken. I'll help you hold it, She wrote that she'd spent her whole life trying to live by advice she once gave an 11-year-old, and never managed to take it herself. She hoped that when I finally knew everything, I'd understand her silence had never been about not trusting me. It was about not trusting herself to survive saying his name out loud in the house where she'd built a second life to hold the grief of the first one. The last item in the box was a letter from my mother, unsent, dated 4 months before she died. Before, I now understand, she knew her own heart was failing, though maybe some part of her already suspected. I won't read it to you word for word. Some things are only mine to keep whole. But I'll tell you what it said, in the way that matters. She wasn't sorry for loving David, and she wasn't sorry, even now, for the choice she'd made at 19. She believed it had given him a life she couldn't have. What she was sorry for was every year she let the secret sit between us, a locked room in a house I thought I knew every corner of. She brought up the blue ceramic bowl. I'd broken it once, when I was 11, her own mother's bowl, and hidden the pieces under my bed instead of telling her, terrified of disappointing her. She found it weeks later anyway. Instead of anger, she sat on my bedroom floor and told me, the hiding is always worse than the breaking, baby. Whatever it is. Bring it to me broken. I'll help you hold it, She wrote that she'd spent her whole life trying to live by advice she once gave an 11-year-old, and never managed to take it herself. She hoped that when I finally knew everything, I'd understand her silence had never been about not trusting me. It was about not trusting herself to survive saying his name out loud in the house where she'd built a second life to hold the grief of the first one.